Everyone, Anthony here from MTG Alpha, and today we're going to discuss how to play Aragorn the Uniter. Aragorn the Uniter is a legendary human creature. It has 5 power, 5 toughness, and it costs red, green, white, and blue. So it costs 4, one of each of those colors. And its ability is that whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever you cast a blue spell, scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, Aragorn the Uniter deals 3 damage to target opponent. And whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So the way that we're going to get the most value out of our commander is by creating tokens, pumping them up with the +4/+4 by playing green spells. So we can go wide, and then we can increase their power, and that's going to be the best way to build the deck. Then we can get a little bit extra value from when we play blue spells by scrying 2, which would make sure that we're constantly drawing what we want. And then we get a little bit extra value when we play red spells by dealing 3 damage directly to an opponent. But a sort of Selesnya build is going to be the best, and having cards in this deck that have multiple colors in its cost. So these are called pips. So when we have cards that have multiple colored pips in its cost, then we can get more value when our commander is out. So as long as our commander is out on the battlefield, then we want to try to just get as many of these to trigger as possible. So the way that I built the deck is by, it's kind of a human tribal deck, lots of tokens, token synergy, pumping things up. And so we're going to just go over some of the key cards that makes this deck as good as it is. So a lot of the cards in here are from the Lord of the Rings set. And here we have Eowyn Shield Maiden. So it costs 2, we get a blue. So as long as our commander's out, every time we play a card that has blue in it, we're going to scry 2. We're going to deal 3 damage direct to an opponent for the red. And then we're going to create a 1/1 human soldier creature token for the white. So we're going to get that on cast. And then when this enters, as long as it's on the battlefield, we'll get its additional abilities here, which synergizes well. It is a human. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if another human entered the battlefield under your control this turn, which it would upon cast, then you get to create 2 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. And then if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. So that triggers the beginning of combat. So we cast it on our main phase. We get our humans. Since upon cast, we got to create our human token as long as Aragorn's out. They have trample and haste. And then if you control 6 or more humans, which at this point we already control 4, or actually, yeah, we control 4 now with just this out, then you get to draw a card. So, and that triggers on the beginning of combat of your turn every single time. And that's just playing 1 card. We have 4 humans, dealt 3 damage to an opponent. We got to scry 2, and we're 2 away from drawing a card. Baragond of the Guard. It is also a human. So we're going to play this. We're going to create a human upon cast. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 and vigilance until end of turn. So we're already seeing lots of keywords in this deck. We're seeing haste, vigilance, trample. So creatures you control, all creatures you control get +1/+1 and vigilance until end of turn. So we're pumping up our humans, and as long as if we could play some green spells, then we can pump them up even more by at least giving a target creature +4/+4. Anointed Processions is going to double the tokens that we produce. So in this case, we have our commander out. We play Baragond. Upon cast, we get a 1/1, but then it doubles. So we're going to have 3 humans just by playing this 4-cost card. And then the ability will trigger multiple times, giving creatures you control +1/+1 multiple times. So this enters, another creature enters, another creature enters, and then now we're +3/+3 vigilance until end of turn. So Anointed Processions is going to just really double up on all of our human tokens. Kindred Discovery, we're going to choose humans when it enters the battlefield. It's an enchantment that costs 5. And whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So with all the tokens that we're producing, upon cast and upon doubling with Anointed Procession, we're now going to draw a card every time a human enters the battlefield. And then if they have haste or not, when we go to combat and attack with a human, we're going to draw a card for each human that's attacking. Upon cast, we'll get to Scry 2 with our commander out when we play Kindred Discovery. So there's a ton of really nice synergy in the deck. Card draw is important and we're getting it very easily. We can also get it with Mass Appeal by drawing a card for each human you control for 3. It's going to be really easy to draw more than 3 cards when playing this. And if you can draw a card for each mana spent, then that's a good card. So we could potentially draw 6 cards for 3, which is pretty crazy. I don't know if you can get better card draw than that. Elven Chorus will allow us to play humans from the top of our library, since that's mostly what we're going to be playing with. And then creatures, all creatures you control, get to tap and add 1 mana of any color. And that could just help us for mana fixing. We are playing with 4 colors. It's mostly when you're playing with multiple colors, you don't want to just do an even spread of each of these because it's going to be a little difficult to be able to cast things efficiently and effectively. So this is a Selesnya deck splashing red and blue. So we have little bits of red and blue in there, but it's mostly going to be green and white or red and white. So Elven Chorus would help with that. And then with Theoden, King of Rowan, another human. When it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So as we're going wide with our tokens and pumping them up with the +1/+1s and the +4/+4s, now we're talking we have double strike. And sometimes they have trample. Often they'll have vigilance. Sometimes they'll have flying. So we have some evasion and ways to deal damage. Balefire Liege is just great in this because upon cast now with these red and white cards, we're going to deal 3 damage direct to an opponent and create a human. So upon cast, this would enter, so its ability won't trigger right away, but then this enters and then its ability triggers. But with Balefire Liege, other red creatures you control get +1/+1. Our tokens are going to be white, so those would also get +1/+1. If they're red and white, they'll both get +1/+1 in both instances, so +2/+2. Whenever you cast a red spell, we're going to deal 3 damage to target player or planeswalker. And then so that's going to be 6 with our commander out, because red spells are going to allow us to deal 6 direct damage now, 2 instances of 3. And then whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. So with this and our commander out, we're going to gain 3 life upon casting white spells, and we're going to get tokens. So a little bit of life gain in there. Riders of Rohan. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. So we're gonna deal 3, create a 1/1. It enters, create 2 2/2s, and we're just going wide with humans. Baird Argivian Recruiter, cost red and white. Upon cast, deal 3, create a 1/1. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create another 1/1 white soldier creature token. And with how we're pumping up our creatures and putting counters on it, which we'll get into, most of the time our tokens are going to have, we're going to have at least a creature with power greater than its base power. And so we'll be able to create another token at the beginning of our end step each turn. Outlaw's Merriment, we're going to create a token upon cast, deal 3. It's an enchantment, and at the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1 at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. So we have 3 options here. We can roll a d6 to get like a random result from it, choosing 1 through 3, or 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, or however. We get to either create a 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste, a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste, or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, it'll deal 1 damage to any target. We can double these up with anointed processions, and we can pump them up with the rest of our synergies here. 4th Arolingas, probably not saying that right, but we have X red and white. We could spend any amount of mana for X. We get the we get to deal the 3 damage direct to an opponent with the red. We get to create a 1/1 with the white as long as our commander's out. And then we get to create X 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. So X is how much we dumped into it. And whenever 1 or more creatures you control deals damage to 1 or more players this turn, you become the monarch. Now, if you're the monarch, you get to draw an additional card at the end of your turn. But then when someone deals damage to you, they now become the monarch, and they'll be able to draw a card at the end of their turn. This is great. We can double up the tokens with Anointed Procession. If we can dump a lot of mana into this, because we do have a lot of ways to ramp in this deck, and Elven Chorus allows us to turn all of our tokens into mana generators. So we could easily dump some mana into this. Let's say we dump 10 into it. Now we create 10 2/2s, and then we can double it with Anointed Processions. And it's going to be kind of hard to deal combat damage to us and take Monarch away from us, since we have a wall of tokens. Faramir, Steward of Gondor. So now we're going to be able to create a token upon cast and scry 2 with the blue. Whenever a legendary creature with mana value 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you become the monarch. So we have some monarch synergy in here. At the beginning of your end step, if you're the monarch, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. So both of these are going to help us with that monarch synergy. And then at the beginning of our end step, create 2 1/1. So we're going wide again with human tokens. Faramir, Prince of Ithilien, white and blue, create a token, scry 2. At the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card if they didn't attack you this turn. Otherwise, create 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Lots and lots of tokens. Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, one of the best cards in this deck. I'd say one of the top 5 cards. 3 green and white. We're going to pump up a creature with +4/+4 till end of turn, create a 1/1 upon cast. It is a 2/2, but whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on here. This is going to get big quick, and then other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. That's insane. And that also helps with increasing our base power. Aragorn and Arwen Wed, 4 green and white, 4 +4/+4 till end of turn, create a 1/1 token. A 3/6 with Vigilance. 6 toughness is pretty high, pretty hard to defeat right off the bat. Pretty low power. However, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. You gain 1 life for each other creature you control. So there's our some more life gain synergy. So really, there's no cards in this deck that are sort of one-off effect. There's synergy with pretty much everything that does occur or trigger. This is Heron's Grace Champion, 2 green and white. It has Flash, which means you can play it at instant speed at any time. It has Lifelink, and then when it enters the battlefield, other humans you control get +1/+1 and gain Lifelink until end of turn, so more life gain synergy. Good Fortune Unicorn, 1 green and white. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. Privileged Position, 2 green white. So this like hybrid mana, so you can play green or pay green or white for it, and it does count as a green and white spell. And then other permanents you control have hexproof, so now things are going to be difficult to target. And then finally we have Horn of Gondor, costs 3 colorless, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. We can pay 3 and tap it to double the create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. So we're not just doubling tokens, we're doubling the number of humans we have on the battlefield by creating 1/1s in addition to that. That's going to be a lot of ETB triggers with humans entering, which we just saw. We have a lot of synergy with that. We can give them double strike, +1/+1, vigilance, card draw. So amazing card. for this deck. And Dundane Blade, 1 and a white. Upon cast, we're going to create a 1/1 human. Equipped creature gets +2/+1, and we can equip this to the creature for just 1 if it's a human, which it'll most likely be. And similarly, we have Sword of the Meek, costs 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. It costs 2 to equip. However, whenever a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from your graveyard to the battlefield, then attach it to that creature. So we'll almost always have a creature equipped with Sword of the Meek, and that creature would get +1/+2. So that is the how to play Aragorn the Uniter. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can see the full deck list in the description and a more detailed video deck tech also on the channel, which I'll have linked at the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Peace.